Hello, my name is Dr. Matt Harris, and this is a continuation of my series on the 6 tenets of educational technology leadership. In this particular video, I'm going to be talking about systemic thinking, that concept that educational technology leaders need to have a touch point or connection to every part of the organization, not merely the educational part or the technology part, but really this interoperability between all of the elements of the school. Now, arguably, EdTech staff, specifically the leadership, are the only administrators within a school that have a full understanding of the entire organization. That is to say, a full organizational knowledge of where things are, how they work, and how they are connected. And think about that. So academic leadership are usually very much concerned about their particular department, or like secondary or primary, particular grade level. They may not know about operations or admissions or maintenance, finance, strategic planning. They won't have that. Same with the operations side. They wouldn't have a full understanding of how an IT system works. They might know a little bit around how it fits operationally, but they might not understand how those decisions around IT will affect the academics and the outcomes and the learning experiences of the students and the work conditions of the teachers. Now, you can make an argument that the principal or the head of school, the person in charge of the school, would have a full overview of everything, and that's true. They really do. But they don't have the detailed level knowledge that an educational technology leader would have. A head of school is not tasked with understanding why we use specific tools to teach various things in grade 5 or year 7. They're tasked with putting the people and processes in place to make sure that the mission is being met across the board, from operations to strategy to the academic pieces. An EdTech person, though, has to know all of that. They have to know where the IT systems work, how they support the operations of the school, how the data systems are running to ensure that the data flow is happening between, say, the finance department and admissions and reporting, and providing sufficient information to the students and teachers. That's all part of an EdTech person's job. They're also responsible for understanding how learning decisions between one division, like a primary school, affect learning decisions for a secondary school. So it's very important that an educational technology leader has an understanding of systems and how systems work together. Arguably, I would say, within my experience of being an educational technology leader, I have touch points in every process on the school, every person, every connection, and absolutely every piece of data within the school has some touch point for me as an EdTech leader, and it has been in all the schools that I've worked in and all the schools that I've consulted with. That educational technology person has to understand the forest and the trees. So we've talked about several of the big trees, the information technology and the leadership and the management, but now what I'm talking about is the ability to put all of the things together to understand how the whole system works within a school. This means understanding interoperability between various systems and various pieces. It also means having a relational experience where you can connect one person to the other, and you can understand how one person's needs are going to affect another person's needs, and in combination, or the aggregate of all of these needs and systems that they're using are going to affect the overall organization. That's an important skill to have, an important skill to develop as an educational technology leader. So you can't just be an expert in IT and EdTech, be this wonderful standout leader that understands the vision, or being able to manage all these people and processes. You have to understand that technology these days is endemic everywhere. It's part of the DNA of our schools on both the leadership, on both the academic side and the operational side, and it's all tied together. So what I would suggest as an educational technology leader, whether you're emerging or an existing leader, is to find ways to understand how systems work. Look at organizational design, look at organizational behavior, and see how people work together. You're not going to be a siloed entity like many of your colleagues will be, so you have to understand how they operate within their silo and how to bridge those silos and connect them together to ensure that everything is being done with a certain level of efficiency and working together. So there's a few suggestions that I make that are rather specific. Think about these specific things. So number one, look at departmental connections. So I'll give you an example. A new student comes into the school, and this is one that I like to use quite a bit because new students have touch points to almost all of our systems. They're going to hit finance, they're going to hit admissions, they're going to hit our main database system, they're going to go into part of our academics, they're going to hit after school, they're going to hit the lunch service, canteen service, they're going to go on the bus. Those are all very separate entities. How do you understand where that flow is, that connection between them? Well, the common connection will be related to technology. And so this is where an EdTech leader fits in. They'll understand how to pipe these people through. They'll understand how to connect them together. So it's very critical that as you're looking at your own school and developing your practice, you understand how departments are connected. Where does marketing fit in with admissions? How does admissions fit in with the performing arts department, let's say, and on an academic side? They are all tied together. You're going to be able to connect those within your own school, and even better, you're going to understand where the connections are broken. And you may be able to solve that with some communication system, a collaboration system, something related to technology, which is incredibly valuable for all of them. Another thing to understand from the academic side is curriculum flow. So your technology is going to support this scaffolding of information and knowledge and wisdom, whatever it is, whatever term you're using at your school to move towards excellence. You're going to have to understand, how does that flow move forward? So we talked about a little bit in the educational technology piece that you have to understand, or it's incumbent on you to understand how the curriculum works at your school. Well, there's a flow to that curriculum. So if you're in an IB program, how does the PYP flow to the MYP, flow to the DP? What sort of data has to flow there? What is the student experience like? And how are you supporting that with technology? I would bet many of your primary teachers, and probably even your primary school leadership, have very little understanding of what a diploma student has to go through with their EE and the core and the CAS. There are 6 different subject areas, the requirements for university counseling. I'm betting there's a disconnect there. But being a technology expert, one that's tied to learning and operations and data flow, you're going to understand those connections. And so understanding that systemic design of curriculum flow is really critical. And I said it before, the relational element is huge. So understanding the human connections between people, whether it's from a positional level, where you're understanding where the head of admissions ties in with an assistant head of primary school, how do those connect together? What is their relationship? What is their collaboration in terms of their positions? And then also understanding the relational elements of the people and personalities at your school. Now, I work in an international school, which means a couple things. First, we have a lot of diversity of opinions, of backgrounds, of approaches to teaching and learning, and we have a lot of turnover. So relationships are fluid. And understanding where those relationships lie and how I need to manage my own personal interactions with people, as well as my interactions with kind of where I want to be as a person from a professional level and a personal level are really quite key. So those are things that you're going to have to do as an educational technology leader, is do that positional and personal connection with all members of the school community. Next, the data flow. And this is really an emerging and critical part of our schools. Where does the data come into your school? What types of data do you have? And how does it flow to all the other departments? So in my admissions example, a new student comes in, where does their data go? Does it go into an admission system? How is that then transferred to the student information system? How is the student information system data transferred to individual teachers about incoming students, to a learning management system, to all these other places? What happens when data is altered? How does that connect with all these required and relevant systems? Those are things that you're going to have to figure out. Those are things that are important for you to understand the interoperability from a systemic standpoint. IT systems, we talked about before, you don't need to know all the passwords. You don't need to be an expert on wiring and cabling, but you need to understand how all of the systems work together. So we have a fleet of client machines. I've got a set of access points. I've got a firewall. I've got servers. I've got maintenance contracts. How do those things fit together? What is my footprint of IT at the school? Where are my points of failure? How does my backup set up? Because that interconnectivity is the backbone of the operations of the school. As they say, breathing, water, and internet. Those are the 3 critical things for a school these days. You have to ensure that you understand what the hierarchy is within your IT systems of prioritization, what the distributed, how your resources are distributed, how do you back them up and provide redundancy, and understanding that entire lay of the land, also connecting it to these various departments, these various elements of the academic community, and maybe even extending beyond of how does that network and that footprint affect teachers, outside of school, parents, incoming professionals, incoming students, incoming families, your website, all of those things. That general map is something that you should understand. So if somebody says, I want to make a change to the firewall over here, or I need to add network nodes over there, you understand how that would affect the entire system. Again, having that systemic thinking. And last but not least, I would definitely take a look at workflow. How does information flow through the system? How do your processes work? Because you're going to be able to see it from a macro level, whereas most other people within your organization are only going to be able to see, they're only going to be able to see what's happening within their own department. They're only going to see their silo. You could see the workflow again of my student coming in through admissions, going into the academic realms, tying into the canteen, having connections to the learning management system, tying into after-school activities. You could see that entire workflow. You could see those handoffs. You could see the efficiencies and arguably the inefficiencies. You could have all of that at your fingertips as an EdTech person. So understanding how those systems work are critical. Now there's a role here when you're thinking about systems. You have a few things. Number one, you need to know the ecology. And the ecology is an important term. You need to know how everything fits and how they work together, kind of like the ecology of a rainforest. If a tree falls down, how does that affect something? How does that affect a monkey 3 miles away? If the water system becomes tainted, what happens over here? If we decide to build a building in the middle of the school, how does that affect other people? That level of ecology and macro understanding is kind of your role as an EdTech person because you have ties into everything that others don't. You need to educate and facilitate connections between people. The number of schools that I've gone to where the EdTech person said, oh yeah, so I've been here for 2 years and I ended up introducing teacher A to teacher B. Both of them had been here for 10 years and they never met each other. That's amazing. But I knew them because I've worked with both of them in various capacities. Facilitating those connections to ensure that you have a really well-informed community that understand how things work together will make your job easier. And it's kind of an inherent responsibility with the level of knowledge that you have. You have the responsibility to improve capacity. So the system can do only so much, and it's going to be very limited if everything's siloed. Your job is to break through those silos to build up additional capacity. That's what technology can do. It has this potential to do great things, but it can only do that if the correct infrastructure and the correct elements are laid out for it to work. You can do that by building capacity. And similarly, you can manage costs by reducing inefficiencies and improving workflows. And you can develop this notion of having an efficient approach to doing things throughout the school. So with my admissions piece, we can, if you're a person who understands the flow of that student and that data, you can help efficiencies grow and manage the costs related to it. More or less, your position of understanding the mission of the school or understanding the systems of the school is to facilitate a growth of the mission. You're organizing everything behind the scenes and connecting people together through technology, which again is embedded in everything we do to push the school towards that level of excellence that you claim that you're working on. You have a direct input on all of that because you see everything. So that's really your job, is to take that ecology, make it better, put the people together, and make sure that they are all working together towards this mission that is being led by your head of school or your various other leaders within the organization. A couple things that I would suggest you take a look at if you're if you're new to this notion of systems thinking. Definitely look at some literature around organizational development. They will talk about interoperability between organizational units or business units within a company or a school. They'll talk about organizational communication, which is critical, something you really ought to take a look at and get to know well. Look at ERP systems. So large-scale ERP systems that you find in the corporate world will take multiple departments together, usually on the operations side. ERPs are very rarely used on the academic side of a school. but they'll connect all of these pieces together to have a central tracking system and a central interface. If you understand why and how those things work, those will be just incredibly valuable to you as a professional. And last, I would take a look at other systems thinking materials. So there's a lot of research out there around systems thinking, around macro thinking within an organization with micro knowledge. Go on Google, go onto scholarly websites and check out those materials, maybe read a couple books. It will help you have a better connection to all elements of the organization and not feel siloed within the technology side, the IT side, or the EdTech side. All right, well, send me any notes if you have any questions, and please enjoy the rest of this series, the 6 Tenets of Educational Technology. Have a good day.